On this edition of Woodworking Adventures, we'll take a look at the wood-turning lifestyle of Barry Todd, what and who inspires his creations and who he learns from, and how he pays it forward. From bowls to boring and hollow forms to finials, we'll talk with Barry and spend some time in his shop learning and turning to get a better understanding of just who Barry is and why he does what he does. Up next on Woodcraft's Woodworking Adventures. Barry, our connection began back in 2014. I was on a fishing trip up in Lake Erie. One of my friends stopped into Jim's taxidermy shop, and I went over to the counter and found your business card. Our history started right from that venture. So tell us a little bit about your connection with Jim's taxidermy shop and how your items got there.
Okay. A friend of mine who I've known for years also knew Jim at the taxidermy shop. One day he said, why don't you talk to Jim and see if he might want to carry some of these bowls? And I thought, you got to be kidding me. But I said, okay. And they took him in there. And then one day, out of the blue, I get this call from this guy named Frank. And I said, okay. And he said, well, I'm with Woodcraft. And I said, oh, crap. I was dumbfounded. First of all, that somebody would really like what I made. And with that chance meeting, that chance phone call, so much has happened, more than I could ever dreamt for.
You and I finally met face-to-face at the Artistry and Wood Show in Wilmington.
Yeah.
One of the guys that you first got introduced to was Jim Burroughs. And this is Jim's oak burl right here, and it's a hollow form. And tell us a little bit about that. And I'm about to pick this up, and it doesn't work the way everybody thinks.
No. Jim gave me this ugly piece of oak burl, and he said, let's see what you can do with it. And about, a couple weeks later, I took it back to him, and he looked at it, and he didn't say anything, and then he smiled, and I knew right then. He said, that's a nice piece. He picked this up, thinking it was a lid.
Sure, I did too.
And then he realized it was hollowed out through that hole.
That's all one solid piece,
Yeah.
with about 1/4 of an inch of wall thickness in all of it.
Yeah. Yeah, this
Tell us
was
a little
fun.
bit, how did you get in there? It's so tight.
Carefully.
Yeah.
A little secret I had heard that a fellow by the name of David Ellsworth used was to take Allen wrenches and sharpen them and use those for hollowing. So this area very close to the hole, that's what I used. The rest was done with carbide tools. The inside. The outside was done with regular tools. And that's going to go to a very good friend of mine.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
I didn't say
very much.
you.
Oh, I thought you. Beyond that, you got to meet a lot of people, and some of the things that you work on are the finials. Mm-hmm. You like a certain person that kind of contributed to your inspiration. Who was that?
Aside from Jim Burroughs, the person who's had the most influence on what I do and who's stimulated my love for trying to create new and more, dramatic forms, is Sidney Drozda. She's the queen of finials, she's the queen of hollow forms, just absolutely beautiful stuff. I saw a copy of Woodworker's catalog in Jim's shop, and I was dumbfounded. I was absolutely speechless. And I asked him, this is really wood? He said, oh yeah. So I took that copy and I went home that night and I just went down to my shop and I had to try to create some of those things. But that was the single most influential thing I've seen for turning. I had no clue that you could do that sort of stuff with wood.
We took the interview inside the wood shop where we learned tips and techniques for creating a finial. Barry showed us how to set up a sculpted persimmon blank, roughing out the initial shape and detailing the finial while considering tool deflection, wood vibration, sanding techniques, and also what Barry calls a cheating method for shaping the thin finial areas.
This is spalted persimmon.
And you can see that bend just a little bit as you're doing that.
Yeah, just a little deflection.
What's the softest wood you've been able to make a finial, and what do you recommend not making finials out of?
Well, I started out with oak. because I figured that'd be the toughest stuff to work with
Right.
because it's so porous.
But
But you learn tool control. Now, something I'm going to do here that I wouldn't recommend folks doing early on if they're just learning this. But by reaching over, you can steady the piece for your tool. Because you are getting down to some flexure now. If I didn't have my hand over there right now,
that would flex and break.
yes. You like that chatter? That's the wood speaking to you.
That's right.
Well, I'm going to show you
Okay.
the same thing that I show the folks when they're doing the class. I will turn one and do my way, then I let them cheat once.
And how do they cheat?
I'm going to show you.
So your fingers on the other side really stabilize that. Did you use that from the beginning, or is that
Yeah,
something you learned, later on?
that's something I learned, but it was
Oop.
like one of these things I found out later. That's what Cindy does. Cindy Drozda.
All right, so you've pulled the tailstock away.
Yep.
And now you're going to freely wing it here with the sandpaper.
Yep. This is the cheating method. You sort of
Because you're going to sand it down.
on the end.
Wow, that thing really
Oh
flexes.
yeah, yeah. That's why you just want to barely move
Yeah, and
your
you've got
sandpaper in and out.
80 grit
This
right
is 80
there.
grit. So this is one of my favorite turning tools. Not really, but it does work very well. If I'm going to make a really thin piece without the sanding, I would just make my basic profile and then start thinning at the end and move back.
Okay.
But
So
for
go
folks,
thin to thick.
Yep, yep. But if folks want to make a nice, decent-looking finial without, I don't know, really fine touch with a skew or any tool, this is how you do it. Anybody can do these. If I can do these, anybody can do these. Yeah, it's got a little flex to it.
Have you taken it down with a tool rather than the sandpaper?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
That's what I'm just saying. If I'm going to do, let's see.
This one here?
Yeah, that was done that way.
Wow. That is very thin. Well, we've done that show before.
Yep. But that was turned without the tailstock.
Yeah.
That is hop hornbeam. That's a nice, hard, dense wood. Turns very nicely. Here, you want to try this? It doesn't take much.
No. And you got to do it gently. It's
Yes.
It's not about
Just let the
gouging it
abrasive
out.
do the work.
Right. Absolutely, let the abrasive do the work.
Am I nervous? No. I'll stand back a little bit.
You don't trust me?
I do.
Oh, okay.
I do. I'm just not so sure about the wood.
I'm not so sure about me. What are you talking about, the wood?
Now, if you want, if you're feeling really brave, you can actually do a little bit more shaping with your paper.
Sure.
Steady it. Touch.
Ooh,
Yeah,
that's
a little
flexing.
flex.
Yeah. Man, that's some serious wood flex.
So you're actually getting us down a little bit thinner.
Yeah, so you're guiding your fingers underneath it for support.
Yep. Yep.
I think, let me try that.
Okay.
Okay.
Now I will stand back. By Jove, I think he's got it. Be careful out there.
Yeah, you've definitely got to let the sandpaper do its thing.
Yeah.
It's not about the muscle here. It's about the tool.
Absolutely. Let the tool do the work. Now, that paper can cut a groove. Let me cut some more with this.
Okay.
I want to cut...
Cut that groove a little deeper.
See what I'm doing?
Yep. Yeah, you can really see that groove taking shape.
A little more definition.
Sure.
And also
Wow, look at that.
Yeah. So now it has some definition. I'll just take this 400. You can also do it down here.
We're running about 2,000 RPM here.
Yep. Just touch this, clean it up. Never put the edge of the sandpaper in contact because you will be leaving grooves.
Okay.
Okay. Except when you're over here.
Right. Well,
Just lay it on.
if
touch.
you had a small wooden rod dowel, you could get in and
Okay.
use that technique as well.
Okay, just lightly touch because these are usually very nice and smooth cuts because you're using that parting tool.
Okay.
And roll it a little bit.
There you go.
Get in here.
Yep.
Doesn't take much.
Just
In
watch
here.
those lines disappear.
Doesn't take much.
Well, Barry, you're going to have to let me come back when there's no cameras and
How's
we
that
just
feel?
break a few pieces.
Cameras. You know you're invited here anytime you want.
I appreciate that, and I will take you up on that.
And I know how you like spending all your time at work, but every now and then you got to take some time off.
I hear you.
Yeah. That's why it's so great to be retired.
You know I'm not that far away, so I'm going to have to come up and join you.
Now there's one last little thing I like to do, is even with the, the captured ball, it doesn't really look that clean to me.
Not enough definition between the two shapes.
Right. Little tiny skew.
Just
And
a
my
tiny
t-
skew.
And my tool rest
Control rest is right here.
piled on top of my ebony.
Do you have a smaller one?
Taller tool rest? No,
No.
I'm saving my money for it.
I happen to know where you can get one.
Do you?
Just saying.
Okay, now if you will excuse me.
I will
Okay.
step out of your way, sir.
You want to hit dead line, dead center, or you're going to do this, or you're
Okay.
going to do that.
So you've got to be firm on
Tilt
that.
it down and just touch.
Yep. Wow, you saw that whole needle move.
Oh, yeah.
Just a little.
Just a little.
Right.
It's still there.
Very nice.
A little bit more definition.
How about right there?
I like to leave that little, that didn't get sanded very well.
You could define it with that again if you wanted to, right? Or don't you want to do that?
No, I don't really want to do that. I'm just going to roll it over. Fingernails work too.
I was going to say, we don't sell those tools.
That does?
Looks like a wax coating.
Uh-huh.
That's pretty cool.
You ever see that before?
No, actually I've not.
Okay. It's because I'm cheap.
You're almost burnishing it, just like taking some wood chips on it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I suppose you could take a little bit of wax, put it on your
Oh,
fingernail
sure.
and do the same
Sure.
thing. So,
But there's no finish on that. And didn't turn out too bad.
no.
I always part this off at 3/8
Why is that?
because I use a 3/8 hole or 3/8 drill to drill the hole in either,
The opposing piece.
yeah.
Okay.
And then just come in. Not there yet. And some people will take a tool and measure it while it's still spinning. I
I've
don't.
seen both. You
I
prefer
don't.
to do it in the...
Yeah, just a little old-fashioned. Yep. That'll do it. Put in some tight bond. The tight bond contains just enough moisture that you'll get some swelling in the wood.
Right.
You gonna catch it?
And this time I didn't drop it.
There's your finial.
There you go.
You did a fine job.
You did just about 99.9 worth of the work. So.
Couldn't have done it without your finger control on the sanding. Souvenir for you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Well, you have kind of adapted a little motto, and you always say, I always have time to make something, or I always have to make something.
Yeah, there's a term going around that you're a maker. I've been a maker ever since I was a kid. I had to be doing something with my hands, whether it was carving chains out of wood, making birdhouses, making a mess in the basement, but I had to make stuff. I've gone through the carpentry stage, the cabinetry stage, the whittling stage, until I found turning. And it's a shame you wait this late in life to find it, but I found my passion.
What was your earliest woodworking project, and did you teach yourself?
Oh yeah, I've taught myself everything until the last few years when I was lucky enough to hook up with Jim. And most of my stuff was crap, but I had fun doing it.
Yeah.
But I had to use the hands to translate what was up here and in here.
What would you say your favorite piece that you've ever created, be it turning or something else, flat work, what would you say that would be?
Honestly, this thing behind you.
Really?
Yeah,
So this is the tree of life.
it's Tree of Life.
You woke up in a
Yeah.
bad dream or a good dream?
It was a dream that motivated me. It was really about 2:30 in the morning. I sat up in bed and I saw this vision of this, I don't know, ungodly looking thing to transform the flow of light and life from the ground up. And I had never bent wood. I had never really dyed wood. There's a lot of first times in that. But it's about 5 months of work. And has it been critically acclaimed or received? No. But
Something you wanted to
I made it for me.
make. Yeah.
That's what I do. If it's something that I see or dream of or feel, then I have to try to make it. Some succeed and some don't.
Back also in 2014, you had another issue come up where Jim helped you. Tell us about that.
I had just met Jim a couple weeks prior. And then one evening I got a phone call that my brother, my much younger brother, had passed away. He was 11 years younger. And of course I was stunned. But I had an idea of what I wanted to do. I wanted to create a crematory urn for him. Next morning I called Jim and I told him what had happened. And he dropped what he was doing. And he helped me. He spent 2 weeks working with me. First hollow form I'd ever done. And no one had ever done anything as unselfish as that for me in my life. It's a reflection on a man.
Times more recently as well, some happy times.
Oh yeah.
You had the opportunity to be on a certain PBS show. What did you think about that opportunity?
Oh God, that was so much fun. I met this gentleman at Artistry in Wood one year. You introduced me. And you had him come on the other side of my table, and he was talking, and we were talking, and you're prompting me to talk louder and project. And from that time, Scott became a good friend. And he invited me to do a little demo at one of his gatherings at the American Woodshop. And I went, had fun. It was nothing special, just a little ring dish. And as people were leaving, when I was packing up, he said, "Would you be interested in doing an episode of American Woodshop?" And I said, "How much do I owe you?" Working with him and doing the show was just so much fun. He made it so easy. And I am by far not the greatest wood turner in the world, but he made me feel like I was contributing something. That triggered something in me. So now I want to teach more people. I want to share what knowledge I have with those who have a curiosity about turning. It's a great pastime and can be a passion for people.
What was it about your past that brought you to woodworking and then eventually turning? What sparked that
I think
inspiration?
it might go back to my dad. He was an engineer. He didn't make a lot of things, but when he did make them, they were great. They were fantastic. I was enthralled by the process of going from a concept to a finished product. And it lit a fire that never went out.
Where do you get your most prolific ideas? From other people, or just inside yourself, or from what you've seen from other people?
What I've seen from other people are new approaches to producing a piece, different styles, whether it's Jimmy Clues turning the lathe as high as it'll go and scaring the crap out of people, or Michael Hoslick with his amazing concept pieces that you either want to laugh at or figure out, why did he do that? But he's a great guy. Jim Burroughs. When I first went to his shop, he walked me into his gallery, and my eyes were the size of saucers. And I just kept asking him, how'd you do that? How'd you do that one? And he said, you learn a little bit and you apply it. And he said, you'll get there. I may not be there, but I'm having fun.
Who inspires you the most?
As an individual, I would say probably, even though I've only met her a couple times and chatted with her a couple times on the internet, would be Cindy. Just her creativity is amazing. Chris Ramsey, the stuff that he can do.
Right, yeah.
Well,
tell us a little bit about that project that you got to take part in.
I was lucky enough to take an AAW class with Chris last summer. And this is one of the little pieces that came from it. It's made out of maple. I had no idea how to do something like that, but he made it look so simple, and that is very thin. It was fun watching him work with me on this, seeing the wood flex and bend, but other folks as well. Malcolm Tibbetts, some of the intricate pieces that he makes, thousands of pieces of wood looking like a Gordian knot. These are the people that new turners and turners who have been on for a while look at these, and it's like, my God, I may not be able to do that, but I can maybe do something along the same lines. This thing.
That's interesting. Tell me about that. That was one of your first, if not the first piece that you made, and it ended up in a special place. Tell us.
That's called Butterfly Phoenix. One day in Jim's shop, he handed me a piece of desert ironwood root, about that long, and a piece of laminated bamboo flooring that was cut in a blank. And he said, well, let's see what you can do with those. I came home, took the blank, and just turned a very simple little dish like this out of it. And I held the piece of ironwood, and I thought, well, what in the heck am I going to do with this thing? So I walked over to the bandsaw, cut it in half at an angle, glued the bottom piece on the bottom of the bowl, and a top piece on the top. I thought, well, that's really strange looking. How can I screw it up even more? So I made a little dragonfly. Body was ebony, and I cut some wings out of coffee wood, put little eyes on it, and glued it on top of that, thinking Jim would get a big kick out of this.
Sure.
Took it into him, showed it to him, and he said, oh, that's a nice piece. I started laughing, and he said, no, that's a nice piece. It's a concept. Why don't you see if you can do something else with it? So I came home all full of excitement and wondering what the heck I was going to do next. And this piece of driftwood that we had picked up on vacation years and years ago, an old rotten piece of maple, and sort of created the same style and a little butterfly on top. The wings are oak burl. They're book matched. Body's ebony. Took that to show him, and he said, you need to contact American Woodturner magazine. Again, I thought he was joking. And he said, no, you need to contact him because you've done something that's a little different. So I contacted him and got a hold of Josh Friend, who's the editor. And he said, well, send me some pictures, some good pictures. So I had to go have pictures taken, sent them to him. And he said, yeah, I'd like to put those in the members gallery in the magazine. And again, I was just like, really?
You like that a lot, like a kid in a candy store.
It is. This is something I wish I'd found so much earlier in life. But yeah, he put it in the members gallery. As a matter of fact, that piece was in the front of the magazine where you have the index of what's going to be found in the magazine. So I have that little page cut out and framed up in my little shop, up in my office. But it just shows that anybody can do anything with turning with just a little knowledge and a little bit of imagination.
What's next for Barry Todd?
I would like to try some larger, deeper pieces. I've reached about the limit of what I can do with the equipment I have, because I have ideas of what I want to do with some larger, different shaped forms. Again, this is the playground up here.
It's a good thing you have that
yeah,
playground.
Yeah,
to play in.
sometimes it's more muddy than others, but it's a playground.
Sure.
And yeah, I have some visions of what I want to do. I like experimenting with piercings and running pieces through those piercings. I made a piece that I called Samurai. It was just a little round piece. I hollowed it out. I thought, well, what can I do with it now? So I just carved some legs with ebony, little curved pins, drilled holes in the original piece, ran them through, and I really liked it. And actually, eventually, somebody else did, enough that they were walking through a show, and she walked past and suddenly stopped and turned around and walked over and said, I want that. There was no talk. There was no discussion about the price. She says,
Sure.
I want that. It just shows that no matter what you come up with, no matter what your concepts are, I'm not an artist, but some of the stuff that I make, people like. Art is, it's in the eye of the beholder. And eventually somebody's going to come along and behold it as art.
I have a piece from you that I enjoy in my place, but there's no better thrill than when I get something from a craftsman such as yourself, an artisan, and you did that for me, surprising me at Christmas time, and I wasn't expecting it in the mail, and I got to tell you, I want to obviously thank you so much, because that makes my day, because I didn't buy it as a gift, and it was like, wow, and everybody walks by my office and says, who made that? And then I have a story to tell them.
Well, I knew you had this little thing for Elvis. Well, more than a little, but
Yeah, you're still-
you are Elvis. I was making some ornaments, and I started playing around with blue and some iridescence, and I thought, oh yeah, I got to do that. So as I was making this thing, I started singing Blue Christmas to myself and anybody else who would listen. So luckily there's nobody else at home. And a little different stuff. There's some glitter in the finish, but I figured that was pretty appropriate for Elvis.
And it was.
Well, and I appreciate what you've done. You've done so much, and I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing without you.
Well, I thank you for that. It's my pleasure, because I knew when I found you and saw your pieces clear back at the taxidermy shop, how great. There was something there.
I look back.
I had to call you.
I look back to those pieces, and yeah, it was me. It was me at the time. They're primitive, and some of the stuff I do now is just basic bowls, which are somewhat primitive. But like anything else that you do that you really enjoy, you get better. You'll learn to do things a little bit finer. It's just the joy of turning.
Beyond woodworking, tell me, who is Barry Todd?
That's a scary subject. Where have I come from? What have I done?
Not so much that, but more of who is the person, Barry Todd?
Probably not the same person he was 10 years ago in the corporate world, doing a lot of traveling, dealing with folks in different countries, dealing with quality of product. You get a little wound up. And once you get out of that environment, you have a chance to find out the real you, what's inside. And while some people may argue a little bit about this, basically my kids, I've become a bit more mellow, actually a whole lot more mellow. And I really, I think a lot of that has to do with the turning, because it's allowed more introspection. Because I look at pieces and they're not just wood, but there's part of me in there.
What's your next step in passing it on to somebody else so it continues, the journey continues for woodworking?
I've not too long ago begun doing demos and doing some teaching. Just this past week I was in Texas, and I had the great opportunity to teach a range of people, from one fellow who had just had another piece in American Woodturner to a lady who had never turned before. The next day, the class was primarily Navy pilots, sharp individuals. Introduced them to stuff that they had never done, never experienced. Sharing what little knowledge I had makes me feel so happy, enjoying what I do. You can't beat the feeling. When you have somebody on a lathe and you're showing a little tool movement and technique and showing them where this thing is going, and then the light goes on, that's reward right there.
You've passed it on.
Oh yeah, I'm trying. And the more opportunities I get to do that, the happier I'm going to be.
We appreciate all that you do for the woodworkers out there, for woodcraft, and just passing on the inspiration of having somebody else carry on. And I'm still here to create all the beautiful things. So thank you very much,
Frank,
for
I can't
having
thank
us.
you enough. Thank you.
Stay linked as we explore the world of entertaining and inspiring artisans, hobbyists, and makers with new episodes from Woodworking Adventures. For Woodcraft, I'm Frank Byers. Thanks for watching.